Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Iraq faces growing political and sectarian chaos. Saudi protesters call for the release of political prisoners. And a look back at the Arab Spring in the countries of the Gulf. Mosaic World News from the Middle East begins now.
A wave of apparently coordinated bomb attacks rocked the Iraqi capital Baghdad this morning, killing 57 people and injuring more than 179 others, as confirmed by the Iraqi Health Ministry. This news comes as Iraq continues to encounter security and political turbulences amid fears over renewed chaos, which started to escalate after the U.S. troops withdrew from the country. Shafi Abdel-Jabbar reports from Baghdad.
The Iraqi capital Baghdad shook for nearly 20 minutes after being rocked by more than 12 explosions. Booby-trapped cars and bombs exploded across various regions, targeting government headquarters, schools, and popular markets, and inflicting heavy casualties.
It's not a good scene. It's chaotic. We demand to know who's behind it and who carried it out. Who wants to destroy the Iraqi people? We need to know.
Look at what happened to all of these people. Look at the number of martyrs. Who will provide for a widow who lost her husband and for a child who has no choice but to pick up garbage from the streets?
A series of coordinated attacks struck the Iraqi capital, Baghdad. It's the first wave of attacks to hit the country since the political crisis erupted among pillars of the ruling coalition government, led by Nouri al-Maliki, in a clear confirmation of the fears expressed on the eve of the U.S. troop withdrawal from the country.
The media and political escalation, the melding of certain political parties in the crisis, the resurfacing of sleeper cells such as the al-Qaeda terror network, which are trying to capitalize on the conflict, all of these factors will further fuel the tense situation.
Violence returned to strike Baghdad with full force. Maintaining security remains the most notable challenge facing al-Maliki's government. Baghdad is exploding both at the security and political levels. The next few days are expected to witness more devastation unless the political rivals work out their differences and conflicts to bring the country safe to shore. From Baghdad, Shafiq Abed-Jabbar, Dubai TV.
A series of positions were taken following yesterday's remarks by Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, who demanded the Kurdistan region hand over Iraqi Vice President Tariq al-Hashimi to the judicial authority in Baghdad. Al-Maliki announced his intention to form a majority government. In the Kurdistan region, the spokesman for the Kurdistan Alliance bloc said the formation of a political majority government serves no one's interest. He added that handing over al-Hashimi will not end the crisis. In response, al-Hashimi rejected a call for his surrender, saying the judicial authority in Iraq has lost its independence. In another development, the Iraqiyya bloc, led by Iyad Allawi, strongly rejected al-Maliki's call for dialogue. The bloc further said they have filed a motion with Parliament to pass a no-confidence vote against al-Maliki.
In Saudi Arabia, people have taken to the streets once again, calling for the release of thousands of prisoners in the oil-rich eastern province. The protesters also called for freedom and equality. Their latest protest took place in the city of Qatif on Wednesday night. Activists say regime forces opened fire in a nearby area. No casualties were reported. Last month, Saudi forces opened fire on thousands of protesters, killing 5 of them. The protests began in March, escalated in November, and have since been going on an almost daily basis. And when staying with Saudi Arabia, activists have called for a nationwide sit-in in mosques across the country on Friday. They are calling on the government to release thousands of political opponents and prisoners of opinion from jail. They have named the sit-in the Friday of Al-Ahmed. The name belongs to a prominent cleric arrested by security forces several months ago while visiting his father. The sit-in will begin simultaneously with Friday prayers in mosques in several major cities, including the eastern port city of Jeddah and the capital Riyadh. Activists have said the sit-in would continue until the Ministry of Interior releases their loved ones and relatives. In August of this year, activists released a report saying there are over 30,000 political prisoners in the strict Arab monarchy. Meanwhile, protests against a Saudi-backed deal continue in Yemen. People in the southern city of Taiz have once again taken to the streets to reject the new governments. The protesters vented their anger at the Saudi-brokered power transfer deal that gives embattled ruler Ali Abdullah Saleh immunity from prosecution. Anti-regime protesters want Saleh, his aides and military elements tried for killing demonstrators over the past 10 months. The deal signed by Saleh last month transferred his presidential powers to his vice president until the next elections. Meanwhile, the UN envoy to Yemen says presidential elections will take place on February 21st as scheduled and without Saleh contesting. Jamal Ben Omar described the current situation as highly fragile, adding that the national unity government is facing huge challenges.
For
many, the extension of the Arab Spring's winds to the countries of the Arab Gulf was unimaginable. But Bahrain, with its famous roundabout, known as Pearl Roundabout, changed the stereotype once and forever as the Bahraini tongues of flame spread to the Sultanate of Oman and the eastern province of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Sally Nabil reviews the winds of the Arab Spring and the subsequent reforms in the Gulf in the following report.
It seems as though the winds of the Arab Spring that swept many countries, headed by Tunisia, Egypt and Libya, blew but only timidly in some Gulf countries. Bahrain was probably the most prominent Gulf country to have been affected by the Arab revolutionary tide. Pearl Roundabout in the capital Manama was the scene of protests launched in mid-February. Thousands of the Shiite majority living in the country participated in angry marches demanding the ruling Sunni minority grant them additional political rights and effective parliamentary representation. Bahraini authorities used Saudi-led Gulf forces to deal with the protests. And while the authorities said these forces were merely in the country to maintain security, they resorted to violence, with 40 people killed in confrontations between security forces and protesters. And so it went from Bahrain to Oman, which is ruled by Sultan Qaboos bin Said since 1970. Also in February, marches were held to ask that additional powers be granted to the Omani parliament, or what is known as the Shura Council, which plays a consultative role and holds no legislative authority. Protesters also called for establishing an independent public prosecutor's office, combating financial and administrative corruption, and attaining social justice. The most notable protest was held in the city of Sahar, located north of Muscat, where security forces used rubber bullets and tear gas. In an attempt to diffuse the anger of the protesters, Sultan Qaboos reshuffled the cabinet and changed 6 ministers. In addition, he ordered that 50,000 job opportunities be provided to the unemployed and that nearly $400 per month be given to anyone seeking employment who's registered at the Ministry of Manpower. He also assigned a ministerial committee to find ways to increase the Shura Council's authority. As for Kuwait, its leading event took place when a large number of citizens stormed the National Assembly building in November. It was in protest to what they described as the government's attempt to protect Prime Minister Nasser al-Muhammad al-Sabah from standing before Parliament in response to the many demands for a probe amid charges of financial corruption. The accusations were related to bribes estimated at millions of dollars that millions of Parliament received from government officials. The incident led to the government's resignation and a call for elections.
وفي محاولة منها لتجنب احتجاجات مماثلة.
In an attempt to prevent similar protests, Saudi Arabia and the Emirates resorted to announcing their intention to increase their employees' salaries at the beginning of next year, in addition to giving out another financial assistance package in the hopes of reducing the opportunity for demonstrators to take to the streets like they have been in many parts of the Arab world. Sally Nabil, BBC. As the tug of war over Yemen's future continues, voices in the south are still calling for what they call disengagement from the Yemeni Republic. The latest voice was expressed through a massive popular mobilization commemorating independence late last month. The symbol of this independence movement is the president of the former state of South Yemen, Ali Salim al-Baid. What is he saying today? And what is the message he would like to send the region from Beirut?
Unity with Ali Abdullah Saleh in 1990 was a great deception. This is how Ali Salim al-Baid describes the years of a united Yemen after raising a unified flag alongside Saleh in the southern Yemeni capital, Aden. Unity was meant to be based on cooperation, but turned into an economic and security occupation that destroyed the characteristics of the south and led the northerners to rule it. Then Saleh, with support from the Gulf countries, waged a violent war to completely control the south, which forced al-Baid to leave the south to the Sultanate of Oman, then to Austria as a political refugee. He doesn't describe the country as Yemen, rather his country is called occupied South Yemen. And since Yemen is currently experiencing a period that will determine its future, al-Baid returned to Beirut to position himself as a force on the ground.
What is happening in the squares of the Arab Yemeni Republic, in Sana'a and Taiz, is related to the struggle over power in Sana'a and between the tribes. It seems like there's a regional and international position against the South, but we have to cooperate with everyone in the region.
On the issue of independence, some internal forces in the south prefer a form of federalism with the support of their Saudi neighbors and others.
But we cannot accept any agreement with occupying parties while we are under occupation. The Arab Yemeni Republic is occupying the south. I came now to Beirut for a potential opportunity for more openness toward us so we can explain our case. We are ready to meet with everyone. And in the coming days, God willing, I will hold a press conference that will be open to everyone.
Journalist, author, and expert on the situation in Yemen, Bashir Bakr explains the symbolism of Ali Salam al-Baid.
Why does he represent southern legitimacy? Because he is the one who signed the unification agreement with the Northern Arab Yemeni Republic. He is the man who signed a document that remains the most powerful if it's in his hand. The peaceful southern mobilization on the streets raises two things, the southern flag and the picture of Ali Salim al-Baid. I believe that today the Iranians are closer to the people of the south. As for Saudi Arabia, there is a problem between Yemen and Saudi Arabia. The problem is particularly with the south and is related to the border demarcation agreement. When President Ali Abdullah Saleh distinguished the border with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, he relinquished an essential part of the southern territory. Saudi Arabia provided these areas after independence. Regional parties are against returning the state of the south because it would have to demarcate the border again, along which resource-rich regions are located in terms of oil, gas and water.
In light of Saudi and Gulf sponsorship in the form of federalism ruling the South, the movement for liberation and independence continues with various parties. They're demanding complete independence that would restore their leadership and the distinct traits of Southerners. And with the aid of regional forces headed by Iran, it will not be surprising to soon witness an independent Southern Republic with its capital as Aden.
Reporters Without Borders indicated in its most recent reports that the number of journalists killed throughout the world in 2011 reached 66, which is 16% higher than last year. Some of them were killed while covering the Arab revolutions or following the criminal gangs in Mexico, or reporting on the political turmoil in Pakistan and other countries. Hossam Ali has the details.
The journalism profession became more dangerous in 2011 compared to last year due to the unstable political situations in numerous regions around the world, according to Reporters Without Borders. The organization indicated in its most recent reports that 66 journalists were killed around the world in 2011. This is nearly 16% higher than last year, when 57 journalists were killed. Around 1,044 journalists were arrested this year, which has nearly doubled since last year. Approximately 1,959 journalists were subjected to physical assaults or threatened to be attacked. 71 journalists were kidnapped and 73 fled their countries. This year also saw the censorship of 499 media networks. As for the online media, 5 activists were killed and 199 others were arrested. 62 activists were threatened, and the internet in 68 countries was censored. The organization considers China, Iran and Eritrea to be the largest prisons for people working in media networks. These dangers can be found all over the world, depending on the pace and severity of events. The Arab Spring topped the list. Libya is one of the most dangerous countries for journalists, and it's where our colleague, cameraman Ali Al-Jaber, was martyred. He was the 3rd martyr that Al Jazeera has lost in the Arab territory. In addition, 2 journalists were killed in Cairo's Tahrir Square when they were covering the revolution against deposed President Hosni Mubarak's regime, whose security forces attacked the square. Change Square in Sana'a is another dangerous area for employees of media networks, as well as Syrian cities rebelling against the regime. Latin America, where armed gangs are rampant, was among the most dangerous places in the world this year, in addition to Pakistan and the Philippines. The rising death toll of journalists this year reminds people of 2007, when the war in Iraq raised the number of killed journalists around the world to 87. Their organization considers that year the darkest year in the history of journalism.
Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas is meeting today in Cairo with the chairman of the Hamas Political Bureau, Khalid Mish'al, and other political faction leaders to activate the reconciliation process. Abbas and Mish'al arrived in Cairo to follow up on the agreement that the factions reached in the past 2 days of meetings, to form an electoral committee and set a timetable to establish an independent government.
Once again,
the Palestinian factions are reunited in Cairo. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is meeting with the chairman of the Hamas Political Bureau, Khalid Mashal, at the negotiation table to discuss ways to bridge the gap and end the years of division that has harmed the Palestinian people. This process began with Egyptian mediation. After the Egyptian people raised their voices demanding the toppling of the regime, and weeks after Mubarak was forced to step down, Palestinians accelerated the process of achieving unity and putting an end to their internal disputes. The factions answered this call and met in Cairo to draw a roadmap for Palestinian reconciliation. Today, the factions began a new phase on the long and arduous path that has lasted for months. The new phase includes an agreement to activate the disabled parliament and form a unity government, instead of having 2 separate governments, in addition to a committee to supervise elections. The meeting in Cairo is limited to Palestinian political groups currently currently represented in the Legislative Council.
تكون مهمة هذا الإطار القيادي المؤقت بحث ومناقشة الموضوع السياسي.
The mission of this meeting of leaders is to discuss the political subject and follow up on the issue of Palestinian reconciliation, as we are arranging and preparing for Palestinian parliamentary elections.
وتقول مصادر فلسطينية مطلعة إن الفصائل اتفقت على
Knowledgeable Palestinian sources say the factions agreed to convene a session at the Palestinian Legislative Council at the beginning of February. They also agreed to form a 9-member independent electoral committee headed by the incumbent chairman of the Electoral Commission, Hana Nasser, in addition to setting a time limit for the formation of a government comprised of independent ministers. Meanwhile, the Legislative Council will proceed with its first mission to approve the newly formed government and pass a law for elections, which will be conducted in May. The reference for implementing the provisions of this principal agreement between the Palestinian factions will be the Basic Law of Palestine. The Basic Law stipulates that the President of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, has authority to request that the Legislative Council convene a new session in accordance with a presidential decree. Meanwhile, all decisions regarding convening the council session, its functions, and resolutions require the consensus of the parliamentary blocs. Relevant parties will also have to agree on ways to deal with the fallout in case the council fails to convene the session, including finding solutions for the issue regarding the occupation's abduction of a number of Palestinian representatives. Meanwhile, the parliamentary blocs in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip will meet in the middle of next month, paving the way for the first session of the Legislative Council. As for the anticipated unity government, it must show signs of a real reconciliation by a date no later than the end of next month, according to the agreement between Abbas and Mashal.
Israel has lashed out at European members of the UN Security Council, saying that instead of condemning Israeli settlement policy, they should be dealing with the real problems of the region. Joining me now with details is IBA's Ellie Woglander. Good evening, Ellie.
Good evening, Yochanan. Yes, there's a war of words going on right now between the UN Security Council, the U.S., and Israel, and it'll probably get worse before it gets better. We'll start with the Security Council, which was led by EU countries Britain, France, Germany, and Portugal, who are contradicting the generally accepted position that all peace negotiations take place between Israel and the Palestinians. Now they are saying that both sides should present proposals to the Middle East Quartet, which would then mediate these proposals and provide a plan for peace. Foreign Ministry spokesman Yigal Palmor said the statement contradicted the Quartet-approved framework for resumption of direct peace talks.
We are absolutely dismayed by the statement made by the European members of the Security Council, where they completely drop the fundamental principle of direct negotiations. They preach a peace process between Israel and the Palestinians. We have agreed, of course, to the Quartet plan, under which both sides should submit ideas and plans to each other and then start direct negotiations. And then comes this statement, completely unwarranted, completely out of the blue, and expresses a whole new line of indirect negotiations.
The United States also reacted sharply to the UN statement, taking Israel's side in that debate, saying that negotiations are the only way any agreement can be reached.
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible by grants from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, the Wincoat Foundation, the Firedoll Foundation, and by support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news, read our blog, get transcripts of past shows, and more at linktv.org/mosaic. U.S. airwaves, a global channel of uncompromising stories. World news, documentaries, entertainment, and culture. Link TV, connecting you to the world. For more information, visit linktv.org.